On a Tuesday afternoon in September, a manufacturer on the east side of Fairview County announced it would shut down a line and cut 140 jobs by December. The story ran in the county paper that afternoon and on 2 television stations that evening. But the leadership at Fairview Church learned about it the way congregations usually gather news. One elder heard a rumor from a neighbor on Thursday. The preacher caught a fragmented mention on the radio Friday morning and assumed the rest of the leadership already knew. Plotted on a timeline, the official conversation didn't happen until an elders meeting 11 days later. The affected families spent 2 weeks deciding what to cut. Care means the most in those first 72 hours, but Fairview was not there. Those elders would have shown up in a heartbeat if they had known in time. They missed the moment because nothing in the ordinary day-to-day life of a congregation is built to tell them it's happening. A congregation's awareness relies entirely on informal channels, a passing mention in the foyer, a post scrolled on social media, or an article the preacher reads. Looking at how this informal network functions, 2 structural flaws stand out immediately. The flow of information is completely accidental, and it is slow. The eldership only hears about a crisis if someone brings it up. Critical, tragic information gets stuck in the network. When fragmented news finally arrives, it completely lacks interpretation. Knowing a plant closed is not the same as knowing 90 of those workers live inside your outreach radius. And informal channels carry no guidance on restraint. Nothing in a foyer rumor tells you how to adjust your existing ministries. No single congregation has a full-time staff member dedicated to scanning and filtering Metro News every single day. Because that daily job goes undone, the congregation is structurally guaranteed to be a step behind its own community. Fixing this requires replacing accidental discovery with a systematic filter. This is what the daily community brief does. It bypasses the informal network entirely to deliver actionable intelligence directly to leadership. Every weekday morning, regional news is scanned and filtered strictly against the geographic radius of the congregation's work. Anything outside that footprint is discarded. The remaining stories are compiled into a short read, ranked by urgency, summarizing what happened and why it matters. The brief translates raw community noise into practical guidance. In the case of a local layoff, it prompts leadership to confirm the benevolence fund balance and establish a request process before the first phone call arrives, rather than trying to figure it out during the conversation. By institutionalizing the discovery process, a congregation stops finding out about its community a month late and starts acting on systematic awareness the same week. A brief that only told you when to act would be dangerous. Accurate interpretation of a community's reality often means knowing exactly when to stay quiet. If an active evangelistic campaign is scheduled for a neighborhood that just experienced a severe tragedy or massive job cuts, the brief provides specific guidance to pause those visits and move them elsewhere. A conversation about a church campaign at a door where someone just lost their livelihood will be heard as opportunism, not care. The brief schedules nothing. It mandates nothing. It offers suggestions, leaving the elders with total autonomous authority to decide how their congregation will respond. Applying systematic restraint protects the integrity of a congregation's witness. It prevents well-meaning missteps and ensures that when the church does speak, it is heard correctly. The requirement to know your community doesn't scale with your budget. The brief is unique because its value applies equally to congregations of vastly different sizes, even if their capacities differ. Look at how the exact same intelligence is used. For a rural church of 35 members with no full-time staff, the brief provides crucial awareness they have no capacity to gather themselves. For a church of 650, it coordinates the elders, the preaching minister, and the benevolence deacon around a single synchronized narrative. It levels the playing field. Any congregation, regardless of staff size, can possess a clear, accurate picture of their community before Sunday arrives. In 1 Chronicles, the men of Issachar receive a very specific commendation. They are praised for 2 things held closely together. They had an understanding of the times, and they knew what Israel ought to do. Separate those 2 traits, and they lose their value. Understanding a community's pain without taking action is just commentary. Taking action without understanding the context is just noise. Under this system, the Fairview scenario plays out entirely differently. The Tuesday plant closure is in front of the elders by Wednesday morning. The 11-day gap disappears. Door knocking scheduled for the affected area is immediately rerouted out of respect. And when families from that plant sit in the assembly on Sunday morning, the men leading public prayer know exactly what they are carrying and pray for them by situation. You can't measure that kind of pastoral care on a marketing chart. It is simply what it looks like for a congregation to be present in its own community at the exact moment that presence actually matters.